Are you thinking about buying a home in Montgomery, Prattville, Pike Road, or Wetumpka? There are certain types of properties that I tell my clients to absolutely avoid. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the exact types of homes that you should stay away from in the Montgomery area so you don't end up being one of those buyers with major regrets after closing. Because the last thing you want is to move to Alabama, buy a house, and then have problems that you didn't even know existed, problems that in some cases you can't fix at all. So if you're serious about making a smart move to Montgomery, stay with me because this could save you a ton of time, money, and stress. If we haven't met yet, my name is Britt Dowling and I make videos about all things Montgomery, Alabama, what it's like to live here, work here, and play here. And as a local real estate agent in the area, I help people just like you relocate to Montgomery and the river region all the time. And I've seen firsthand what works and what doesn't when buying a home right here in the river region. And here's the thing, Montgomery is different. So in this video, I'm gonna share the types of properties I personally avoid and the ones I advise my clients against so that you can make a confident, informed decision when you move here. Okay, so one of the first things I wanna cover before I cover the types of property is Alabama is a little unique because we are what's called a caveat emptor state. And what that means is buyer beware. And while some states require the sellers to give disclosures on everything wrong with the house, Alabama does not require that. So Alabama is, like the term says, buyer beware, is up to the buyer to determine whether the home or the property is something that they are willing to purchase. So it's up to them to do all of the inspections. Now, we are required to disclose health and safety hazards. If you're coming from a state like California, New York, or any of those other disclosure heavy states, you gotta be aware it's all up to the buyer to make sure that the home is what they want to purchase. All right, let's talk about the first type of property that I tell my clients to really be careful with, and that is flipped homes. Now, I'm not saying that all flips are bad. Some are done really well, but here in the Montgomery and River region, I've seen way too many buyers get burned by flips that look great, they look perfect in photos, but turned into expensive problems within months of moving in. And the thing about a bad flip is you're not just dealing with one problem, you're gonna be dealing with shortcuts throughout the entire house, because if a flipper cuts corners on what you can see, can you imagine what they did that you can't see? So here's what you need to know about evaluating flips in the Montgomery area. There are a few pockets of neighborhoods where investors tend to concentrate their investments and their rentals. And typically the after repair price point for these flips are in the $150,000 to $250,000 range. They're often marketed as move-in ready or completely renovated, though I will say that verbiage doesn't always indicate a flip. So many of the flips are done by out-of-state investors or first-time home flippers trying their hand at the flipping game. So a lot of times they do cut corners because it does get expensive, a lot more expensive than they imagine. And exterior paint without proper prep in Alabama's humidity can peel within 1 to 2 years. Sometimes you'll see inadequate HVAC sizing, so flippers often install the cheapest unit without proper load calculation. So undersized systems will run constantly and they'll fail early. A lot of times you'll see poor attic ventilation. If they don't address ventilation issues during roof replacement, you're probably gonna have mold and premature shingle failure. Bathroom and kitchen ventilation, a lot of flips skip proper exhaust fans or vent them into attics instead of outside, which is a recipe for mold. And here are some of the things you can look for. First of all, permit records. You gotta, check Montgomery County or Watauga County, Elmore County, ask for contractor licenses, check for cosmetic shortcuts. Those will be like uneven tile, gaps in the trim, cheap fixtures. A lot of times in floors, you'll see an uneven or like a mismatched floor, or maybe one's a little bit higher than the other. You'll also want to watch out for added outlets without proper circuits. Old aluminum wiring in these older homes, a lot of times those will be covered up with new switches or new outlets, and they might be overloaded circuits. Now, I know what you're thinking. Britt, I just want to find a house that I can afford. And sometimes you feel like you have to compromise, but here's what I want you to understand. Some compromises you can live with, and some compromises will cost you thousands when you go to sell. Let me walk you through the location issue that seems small now, but can become a big problem later, a problem that you can't fix no matter how much money you throw at it. And in all my years of selling homes in the Montgomery area, I can count on one hand the number of times a home that backs up to a major highway or a major roadway has gotten multiple offers. So I-85 cuts through Montgomery, and a lot of homes that are backing up to it deal with constant traffic noise. Atlanta Highway, Taylor Road, Vaughn Road are all major corridors, and they are roads that only get busier as the area grows. Now, these aren't just busy during rush hour. Semi-trucks run 24/7, and that's a constant hum you'll have to hear even with the windows closed. So you might look at a house on Tuesday morning when traffic is light and think, that's fine. But come back at 5 p.m. on a Thursday and it might be a different story. There's also several railroad lines that run through a few of the river region suburbs, and some homes back directly to the railroad tracks. So let's say there are 100 potential buyers looking at homes in a certain price range and location. The moment you add backs to a highway or near railroad tracks, you're gonna lose probably 60 to 70% of those buyers immediately. These homes often sit longer on the market and sell for less per square foot. So I tell my clients to think about the 5 to 10 year horizon. Will you be able to sell this home easily in 5 to 10 years? Are you gonna get your money back plus appreciation? All right, we've covered flips where problems are hidden under fresh paint, the location issues that you can't fix no matter how much money you throw at them. But now I need to talk about the most expensive problem you can encounter when buying a home. I'm talking about foundation and structural issues. Because the thing is, you can live with a little bit of highway noise, but you can't live in a house that's literally falling apart. And in Alabama, because of our clay soil, foundation problems are a little more common in some pockets than most buyers realize. So let me show you exactly what to look for and why this is a non-negotiable. By the way, before we move to the next property, if you find this or any of my videos helpful, can you do me a favor and give this video a like and click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos about living in Montgomery, Alabama. Let's get back to it. All right, so we're talking about homes with foundation and structural issues. And like I said, I can work with clients and work through a lot of other problems. But foundation problems, that's where a lot of people really draw the line, and it makes sense because foundation issues affect the entire structure of the home. They're very expensive to fix. They can come back even after repairs, and they scare away future buyers. Now, this isn't something you can DIY or put off until later. This is gonna require specialists, engineering reports, and some serious money. So typical cost for a foundation crack repair could be between $2,000 and $8,000. For a pier installation or adjustment could be between $1,000 and $3,000. Major foundation repair could be between $15,000 and $50,000. And then structural beam replacement could be between $5,000 and $15,000. And the other thing is your homeowner's insurance probably won't cover foundation issues caused by settling or soil movement. This is all out of pocket. Now, Alabama has what's called expansive clay soil. So when it gets wet, it expands. When it dries out, it contracts. And this expansion and contraction puts constant pressure on your foundation. Over time, this can cause cracks, settling, and movement. Now, there are certain parts of the river region here that have what we locally just call it prairie soil. I'm not sure what they call it in other areas, but it is worse in some pockets than others. You need to know where those pockets are and so that you can avoid them and avoid the headaches that come. What's unfortunate is that some of the new construction neighborhoods have been and are being built right on top of the worst areas of prairie soil. And it's just a matter of time before those issues show up. And so knowing which neighborhoods that avoid those is definitely key. So some of the signs to look for with foundation problems on the interior, you're gonna look for cracks in the drywall, especially diagonal cracks radiating from the door or window corners. Cracks wider than 1/4 inch, so anything that you can fit a credit card into is a bit of a concern. Doors that won't stay open or close. They kind of swing in and out on their own. Windows that stick or won't open or close smoothly. Let's see, gaps between walls and ceilings or where walls meet the floors. Some of the exterior signs you can look for are stair-step cracks in the brick or the block. This is the classic foundation movement pattern on the exterior. Horizontal cracks in foundation walls. Older neighborhoods with mature trees can have additional foundation stress from root systems that run right underneath the house, so generally only if the trees are really close. So foundation issues are the most expensive problem you can have when buying a home, but there are issues that could scare you almost as much, and that's buying a home where multiple systems are at the end of their life. Because you might avoid the $30,000 foundation repair, but if you've got a 20-year-old HVAC, a plumbing that's original from 1985, aluminum wiring, and a roof that's about to fail, you're looking at about $20,000 to $40,000 in repair over the next couple of years. And unlike foundation problems that show up in obvious ways, aging systems can seem fine during a showing and then fail 3 months after you close. So let's talk about 4 major systems that you need to evaluate before you buy and why in Alabama, these systems might not last quite as long. Alabama is hot, humid, and gets severe weather, and that's the perfect storm for wearing out home systems faster. Your HVAC system can easily run 8 months out of the year. In other parts of the country, it might only run 3 to 4 months. So that means a system that's rated for 15 to 20 years might only last 12 to 15 years in Alabama because it's working twice as hard and for twice as long. Summer temperatures regularly hit 95 to 100 degrees. Humidity stays high even when it's not raining. And this combination is a brutal combo on HVAC systems, roofs, and exterior components. Severe thunderstorms and hail damage can damage roofs and exterior HVAC condenser units. In Alabama, HVAC is not a luxury, it's absolutely necessary, and you cannot live here comfortably without working air conditioning. Replacing an HVAC system in Alabama costs between $5,000 and $12,000 depending on the size of your home and the quality of the system. And HVAC national average lifespan is 15 to 20 years. And like I said earlier, in Alabama, the reality of it is probably 12 to 15 years. So there are several homes that were built in the 1990s that still do have the original systems. I see that all the time. And if you're curious, there are several ways to tell the age of the unit by the sticker on the external condenser outside. But sometimes that sticker's so old you can't see the writing on it. So typically, if it's 10 plus years old, you're going to budget for a replacement several years, like you're looking at 5 so years. If it's 15 plus years old, replacement is pretty close. And if it's 20 plus years old, you probably want to replace that immediately. And then I'm not sure how things are in other parts of the country, but I know here the systems are a 2-part system. You've got the external condenser, and then you've got the internal air handler. And you want to check the age of both of those, because if the age is not consistent, if they weren't replaced at the same time, one could be much older, and then now you're looking at replacement. What you want to do is you want to make sure that both units have been replaced at the same time. Now, as far as plumbing goes, clay soil movement can stress underground pipes, and temperature swings, while not very common, we do get some freezes in some parts of the year. I had a client buy a house here. They bought it and didn't move here yet, so it was sitting empty, and then one day I get a call from the neighbor who's saying that there's water pouring out of the house. This was in February of, I think it was 2023 maybe. And we had a really hard freeze for like several days. I mean, it was like probably 3 to 5 days of just a hard freeze, never got above freezing, which is rare here. So I get a call from the client or the neighbor, water pouring out of the house. I run over there, and sure enough, I open the door and there's just water I'm walking through, it's probably 2 to 3 inches of water all throughout the house. The ceiling had fallen in, pipes had burst in the ceiling. So not good at all. We do get some damaging freezes occasionally, but that's not very common. So you do want to make sure that plumbing is satisfactory. You want to make sure that there's insulation in the attic. That was the problem here, and there wasn't adequate insulation in the attic right there. And so those pipes right there in that side of the house burst, and it just caused all sorts of damage. Other problems you might run into are galvanized pipes in older homes. Those can rust out pretty quickly. And then there's some PEX piping, PEX piping. Those generally are going to run 40 to 50 years. Now, there's a specific PEX pipe that was used in some new construction here in the area that were built in a very specific time frame that has consistently had issues leaking. It's caused homeowners to have to tear out completely tear out walls. Even I've heard stories of people having to dig holes in their living rooms to get into the foundation, to get to the leaks and to repair those. So knowing which neighborhoods those are, the year built of those neighborhoods and or those specific homes can definitely save you a lot of headache, because I've had friends who had those same problems, and they had to move out of their house for several months and get those things fixed. So not knowing where these specific builds are can set you up for a lot of big headaches and expensive repairs in the future. All right, so bad plumbing can cause water damage, but bad electrical can cause fires, which obviously, I mean, it's obvious what that can do. So you might love the house, but if you can't get the insurance, then you can't close. And so sometimes aluminum wiring is a fire hazard, not always. And it doesn't necessarily mean automatic, like you should reject it, but it needs to be evaluated by an electrician. Older homes may not have properly grounded electrical systems, and if you needed to replace the electrical panel, that could be between $2,000 and $5,000. And then another thing you should look for are GFCI outlets that are missing in the bathrooms and or kitchen. The roof is another one. So intense summer heat does degrade shingles faster. The high humidity promotes algae growth, moss growth, and premature breakdown. Severe weather, so wind, hail, and other falling branches can do some damage. And then, so hail damage is pretty common here. We do get some storms, and that's a pretty common thing with roofs. So you wanna make sure that you assess that. So when you're looking at roofs, asphalt shingles are the most common types of shingles here. They're gonna have about a 15 to 25 year lifespan, depending on the quality. You can have architectural asphalt shingles. Those are going to be between 20 and 30 years. They're just a little bit of an upgrade from the kind of base level asphalt shingles. Metal roofs are not really that common, but you'll get about 40 to 70 years out of those. And then a roof replacement, like we talked about, can be anywhere between $8,000 and $20,000, really about $24,000. Depending on the size, the pitch, and the material. A couple of things to look for on the roof are missing shingles, curling shingles, or cupped shingles. Shingles with missing granule or visible granule loss, and then water stains on the ceilings on the interior. So to cover those costs again, the cumulative costs for HVAC's about $8,000, water heaters about $2,000, electrical panels about $2,000 to $5,000, roof is about $15,000 to $20,000, plumbing about $5,000. All right, so we covered aging systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and roofs. And I mentioned how Alabama's climate is brutal on those systems. That same climate, the heat and the humidity, the 50+ inches of rain that we get every year, that all creates another massive problem that can destroy a home from the inside out. And what I'm talking about is water damage, mold, and moisture issues. And this is the problem that most sellers are most likely to hide, inspectors are most likely to miss, and buyers don't discover until they're living in the house and it's too late. Because unlike a bad HVAC system that you can see and replace, mold and moisture problems can be hiding in your walls, in your attic, and in your crawl space, places that you don't look until it's already a problem. So let me show you what to watch for, because in Alabama, moisture is your home's worst enemy. So like I mentioned before, Alabama gets on average 50 to 55 inches of rain per year. We have high humidity year round. They create ideal conditions for mold growth. So mold needs moisture plus organic matter. And then it attracts termites and other pests because they're drawn to the moisture. They're also drawn to the already broken down wood. It can also create health hazards for occupants. So mold can start growing within 24 to 48 hours of water intrusion. That means a slow leak that you don't know about can create a major mold problem in just a few days. And once mold establishes itself, it's pretty expensive and difficult to fully remediate. So some of the sources of water intrusion could be roof leaks. You'll see water stains on the ceilings. It could be poor drainage and foundation water intrusion. So you'll see ground sloping towards the house instead of away from the house. Obviously plumbing leaks, and then window and door leaks. I will say not all mold is deadly, but most will cause some sort of allergic and respiratory problems if left untreated. But if mold is suspected, I would definitely recommend having a mold-specific inspection. These are not covered under the general home inspection. You would have to get a specific mold inspection. There are parts of the river region that are flood prone, so knowing which areas that are flood prone so you can avoid them is pretty important. Some of the ways sellers hide possible mold problems are either kills or primer on the ceiling that's visible. So a lot of times you'll look on the ceiling and you'll see this white patch of paint on the ceiling. Air fresheners can often mask a musty smell. So a lot of times if you walk in and you smell this really strong, overpowering air freshener, and then maybe it's mixed with a little bit of a musty smell, that might be a little bit of a sign. Sometimes they might only replace the visible moldy materials and they don't address the source. So sellers are required to disclose only known health and safety hazards. And the key there is known. So sellers may not even know themselves that there's mold. So your responsible is to discover that during all of your inspections. I had a client who moved here and they bought a house. They moved in only to find that they were having some allergic or allergy and respiratory problems. Long story short, they ended up having mold in their house and had to block off, like tent off their entire kitchen, tear out all of the walls. and have that all remediated. Could have been a real safety and health hazard, and the problem is the sellers probably didn't even know that it existed in there. Now, all those are specific fixable problems. They are expensive problems, but they're problems that have solutions, except for the location one. But now I want to talk about something different, and it's something that's not about the house itself, but about the market reality of selling it down the road. What I see happen all the time is buyers fall in love with a house. They convince themselves they'll be there forever, and they don't think about resale. But life changes, job changes, families grow, and when it's time to sell, they discover they bought a house that almost nobody wants. So I want to talk about the types of homes and locations that seem fine when you buy them, but become massive problems when you try to sell. So when you buy a home, you're not just buying it for today, you're buying it for the eventual sale, even if that is years away. The easier your home is to sell, the more negotiating power you're gonna have. The harder it is to sell, the more you're at the mercy of the few buyers willing to consider it. In reality, the average home ownership is between 7 and 10 years. Military families, it's typically 3 to 5 years here, and you might plan to stay forever, but life always gets a vote. So always remember, broad appeal means more potential buyers, which means a faster sale and possibly higher price. First of all, homes on busy streets. Again, we talked about Taylor Road, Vaughn Road, Atlanta Highway, all the others. That's already covered, but it's worth repeating. In my experience, those homes with location noise issues take about 20 to 30% longer to sell than comparable homes without. Then there are homes with odd or outdated floor plans. This is called functional obsolescence. So styles change. You know, what was desirable in 1975, but it might not be to everybody. You've got homes built with outdated layouts that are harder to sell because sometimes buyers want a modern flow. Now, my personal opinion is our house is separated, it's divided. It's not an open floor plan. I actually like the feeling like when you're in the kitchen, you're in the kitchen. That's my personal opinion, but not everybody likes that. Obviously, there are a lot of people who like this open floor plan, and so sometimes all the bedrooms on the same side of the house or in the same hallway might be an issue. Single bathroom homes. This goes without saying. Single bath homes are very hard to sell, especially if it's a 3-bed, 1-bath home. I mean, you're talking about probably a family that lives there. They all have to share 1 bathroom. In high school, I lived in one of these homes. We had a 3-bed, 1-bath home. It was very difficult because we had multiple people living there, 1 bathroom, and you can imagine that causes some problems. So you can update finishes, paint, flooring, and countertops, but you can't easily change the layout. Kind of mentioned it before, but homes with insufficient bedrooms and bathrooms, you know, in addition to that, 2-bedroom homes are also very difficult to sell. Except for a lot of times investors might want them, but then you're probably going to be lowballed on the offer. And then you've got homes with inadequate parking. So you don't necessarily need a garage. In certain neighborhoods, that is not expected. And it's actually common here for a house to not have a garage. But limited parking in the driveway or parking behind the house with a shared driveway, that can be a pretty big deal breaker for some people. Also, not to mention, some neighborhoods don't allow parking on the streets. Again, we talked about the noise, but homes backing up to undesirable features. Homes with high voltage transmission lines behind them, they can create some perception issues of health. You know, some people might think that those are health issues, whether that's real or perceived. If the home backs up to commercial areas, so homes backing up to shopping centers or restaurants, you know, I don't think anybody really wants to look out their back window and see a dumpster behind a restaurant. Or homes that back up to industrial areas, so like warehouses and distribution centers, that's gonna be 24/7 noise. You got all the trucks coming in and out, and all that goes along with that. Now, while I can't and I won't steer you away from specific neighborhoods, what I would say is do your research on crimes and school performance and make the best decision for your future resale. What you'll find is buyers do often check crime ratings and crime maps online, and where there's high crime, it's immediately filtered out. And for schools, even if you don't have kids, your buyers might, and so school ratings directly impact home values. So if you're relocating to Montgomery, I would love to be the person in your corner to help you make a smart move to the area. You can reach out through my information in the description or grab the link in there to schedule a call on my calendar. And if you want to keep learning about the Montgomery area, check out this video, which is going to be somewhere around in here. Either way, I hope this information helps you understand what to look out for. I'll see you on the next video, and I'll see you around town.